in the book, right, the main focus of the book is creating a balance, which is why that chapter is so big, creating a balanced ecosystem, because it is about attracting those pollinators and creating a habitat and shelter for them so that they can exist, right? And then they can help increase the yields of our plants, of our food, and then our ecosystem wouldn't fall and fail. So once you understand the importance of that, it can actually help you reimagine what our world would look like if we were all to play a role in the survival of our pollinators.
Herbal Radio is brought to you by Mountain Rose Herbs. Mountain Rose Herbs is committed to putting people, plants, and planet before profit. They work hand in hand with farm partners to provide the highest quality organic herbs, spices, extracts, teas, essential oils, and DIY ingredients. Mountain Rose Herbs is proud to be independently owned and operated here in Eugene, Oregon. Please visit mountainroseherbs.com for all your wellness needs. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to Herbal Radio. I am Lucretia VanDyke, author of African American Herbalism. I am so excited today. We're bringing you Tyrone Ledford, and I'm going to read you a little bit about his bio, and then we're going to jump into a bunch of questions that I have and see where this conversation goes. Welcome, Tyrone.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Tyrone Ledford is a native from Compton, California, received his bachelor's degree from California State University, Fullerton, in Child and Adolescent Development with an emphasis on early childhood education. He received his master's degree from Pacific Oaks College in Human Development and Social Change. Tyrone has had almost 15 years of experience teaching early childhood education and is currently full-time child development professor for Cerro Coso Community College.
Cerro Coso Community College.
Perfect. Tyrone's background consists of working in mental health intensive services as a family specialist. Tyrone is also the author of a child, family, and community open resource textbook that is used throughout community colleges in California. I'm excited about talking about that too. Tyrone is also the co-founder of Holistic Divine Innovations, founded and organized the Ridgecrest Community Garden and Herbal Zen Garden. Tyrone has also been gardening intentionally for 10 years and grows a combination of fruits, vegetables, herbs for both culinary and healing power. Tyrone's experience extends as far as growing herbs to create his own teas, tinctures, and educating communities on how to grow their own food and how to use food for its nutritional value and medicinal properties. Tyrone's goal is to introduce individuals to natural resources that our earth provides and to increase fresh organic food resources throughout communities. Tyrone hopes to help you create a sustainable garden because he believes health is wealth. I love that you have so many different things that you merge in together. I'm so excited about this interview because both mental health, gardening, and like you're a foodie with herbs too, which was like one of the things that I'm excited about jumping in. We did another interview with you and a couple of us together, and we really vibed on the food part. So I'm excited about diving in deep. I love that you've written a textbook for mental health. That was before herbalism and gardening, kind of at the same time.
Yeah, it was kind of at the same time. So with my work with being a full-time child development professor, I also do a lot of work in trauma-informed care. Like for my college, I created a specialization program in trauma-informed care, which was maybe the second one created in California so far. But since then, it has expanded. And with my work in the field of child development, I co-authored one of the textbooks, which is The Socialization of the Child, which is used throughout community colleges throughout California.
Wow. And so how did that shift happen for you? Like going from like mental health, you've always been a gardener. even
Yes.
before you started in there. How did that shift happen to kind of have two worlds combined, or are they combined?
Well, being raised in Compton, first of all,
Yeah.
you is navigating through a lot of trauma, right? As you're a child, you're younger, you don't really know what trauma is. You're kind of just navigating through your environment. But then as I'll just say as I got older and I started to really study humans, right, with child development and then especially moving on to human development and social change, I was able to conceptualize a lot of my experiences and the experiences of my peers, to realize that we were all just navigating through trauma, just trying to overcome our environment, overcoming adversity. You start learning about what risk factors are. Even just being African American is a risk factor. Being Latino, as we see in today's society, is a risk factor. So just understanding those things and how it impacts your psychological well-being, how it impacts your mental health, your physical health. Right? We look at which is going to dive into why herbalism is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that trauma and stress on your body causes chronic diseases like kidney disease, heart disease, liver disease. A lot of that is caused by the amount of stress and trauma you put on your body, right? So, alleviating that, right, the mental health and the well-being of your body, a lot of herbs can help with that, right? So if you tie that into gardening, which I like to look at the larger picture, which is environmental justice, right? This is access
Yeah.
to land, access to resources, and not just any resources, right? Like healthy, organic
Yeah.
resources, right? Not food and herbs and stuff that's full of pesticides and chemicals, right? So we're talking about having that access and that freedom, right? Access equals freedom. Then we can better take care of our mental and physical, spiritual, right? All of our well beings, right? We can better tend to those needs with that access. So that is how all of those things kind of tie in together. You can't have one
Yeah.
without the other, right? You can't just give all this information and then we have all this information. It's like, what do we do with it, right? We don't have access to land. We don't have access to all of these things to be able to create something sustainable for ourselves.
Yeah. That's what's so amazing about the projects that you've kind of like, even researching you a little bit more since our last time, I was like, there's so much going on in that hub. And so how did was the garden kind of a byproduct of the work you'd been doing and realizing that people needed to get their hands in the earth?
Absolutely. So the garden was formed around COVID, right? When COVID hit in 2020, was something that really encouraged myself to build this garden, right? So where I'm located is a city called Ridgecrest in California, Kern County, and it is a desert. It's considered the high desert, right? So just with being in the high desert, there's already lack of access to everything, right? the
Mm,
inability the inability to grow your own food due to the harsh climates, the inability to um, you know have access to organic produce, right? Due to the lack of access of organic stores that we have out here. I mean, we have a Walmart, Stater Bros, and Albertsons.
mm,
Those are the only three stores we have out here, right? And obviously, that's going to be limited access to fresh organic produce. So the idea, what sparked it, was just me moving out here. My wife and my children, our family moved out here, and it was we came from California, right? We came from Compton, Orange County, so we're used to, especially Orange County, where we're used to having access to things, being able to grow our own food. So coming out here and seeing that grocery stores are wiped out, right? Everyone's fighting over the wrong things, toilet paper, right?
yeah.
And I think it really hit a lot of people like, wow, if grocery stores are wiped out, we have no other access to food. So that was one of the main motivations with my gardening background, was to come out here and to build something where it's not only providing food, but it's also inspiring others to take on that task and change your concept, change your perception, your perspective of living in a desert, right? When you think desert, you think emptiness, right? You think
Yeah.
a brown canvas, right? You tumbleweeds and just um what are the things called, the little pokey little plants, cactuses and all that stuff. So the idea is to reimagine what a desert climate looks like, right? Because it is possible. So once you are able to I always say, if you can vision it, then you can create it, right? If you
Yeah.
can't envision something, you will never be able to create it. So really helping people to reimagine what living in the desert looks like, right? And then we're able to create it. So that was really the main inspiration behind getting a community garden started out here in the high desert.
Yeah. And then, so you acquired a piece of land, or is it,
Mhm.
and sometimes those basic steps for people, I'm so about urban gardening, and urban gardens and community gardens. Like living in New Orleans, on and off for quite some time, I saw the importance again. There's like certain, seven down in the lower nine, there's no grocery stores. There's like
Mhm.
Dollar General, and so seeing this uprising of community gardens in the city is like such a passion of mine. And so, how easy was it for you to acquire land?
Um, it actually wasn't hard. It wasn't.
I love that. It's like you said,
Yeah, I'm not
I
gonna say it
saw
was
it, and I built
easy
it.
hard, but yeah, it was really, because you have to. I come from LA, right? So
Yeah.
coming from there is always competitive, right? Is you were always moving. We're always, it's like, we're always competing. So coming out here where it's quiet, where it's, the population is what, about 30,000. It was really just me going around looking for a piece of land that um, I felt connected to, right?
Mm.
So, and I remember this day because myself, my wife, and my children, we were all driving. We were literally driving around looking for vacant lots. And then when we were finding some, we were looking them up online to see who owned them, to see what's going on. And then we came across one vacant lot in a residential area, which at the time we didn't know that was one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, and it felt like Compton, right? It felt, I see apartment buildings there, I see Latinos, I see African Americans, I see loud music being playing, so it felt very cultured on that street, right? So when I drove past a piece of land, one thing I look for is, does it have utilities, right? Does it have water connected to it? Does it have electricity? Does it have like a sewer system or whatever? But mainly water, right? We want to make sure that it
Yeah.
has water. So then once we found out, we were able to contact the person who owned it, shoot him the idea that we wanted to build a community garden on there. And from there, we were able to get it for a cheap price. And I could give you the price now. So we were able to get the first, because it's two um, lots that's connected, right? So we started off with just one vacant lot, and we were able to purchase that lot for $7,500 to get
Wow.
started. So then once we were able to purchase that, it was go time.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were also the recipient for one of the grants for plants.
Uh-huh.
I know. Well, did that happen around that time?
It did. It happened
Okay.
around that time. So the story with that, right, is when we first acquired the land, we applied for grants for plants, but we didn't have anything. We just had the land, right? And
Yeah.
it was really just a concept we were throwing out there. We want to build this garden, this community garden. We want to grow this food. So we actually didn't receive the grant the first year we
Mm.
applied for it. So I was like, okay. And then we just started to build, right? We started off with 9 raised beds, a bunch of volunteers. So within that first year, we were able to establish ourselves and actually show this big proof of concept of what we were trying to accomplish. And then after that, we were able to purchase the property, the vacant lot next to it. And then we applied for the grant again, and we were able um, to get the grant, and that helped out a lot because we had an idea of the community garden side. We were going to grow plants. We were going to grow food, right? To help cultivate health, right? Health awareness. But then we transformed the second vacant lot into a herbal zen garden. So we wanted to meet the needs of nutrition and then wellness as well. So we wanted to focus more on growing herbs and growing flowers and growing all these plants that can help um, increase wellness awareness or awareness on wellness, however we want to say it, right?
Yeah. I was like, both and. I love that. Um, and so have you seen like your own self, like having a mental health background and then having this gardening background? Do you feel like it's like an ancestral calling or helping people connect to their ancestors to do this work?
Absolutely. That is how going to the land and really I go and I sit with myself. So that is how I talk to God. That is how I talk to my ancestors. And I truly believe that my ancestors are holding me and guiding me throughout this entire process. So that is how I connect to our ancestors because I mean, if you look at it, our ancestors, when you pass, you go back into the earth,
Yeah.
right? So that is a lot of the ways how we connect back to our ancestors for guidance.
Yeah, I love that. I tell you, I come from a long line of farmers on both sides of my family, and I used to kill fake plants, even though I spent every summer, in the farm and harvesting and the family getting together, and it was such a beautiful thing that I wanted to get away from. I was like, I'm going to be a city girl. I'm not doing this farming thing. And so come around 360, like the ancestors sometimes are like, whatever, go do what you got to do, but you coming back to the earth here and do that. And so I'm much like you. That's my idea of church and prayer, standing on the dirt and looking and letting it start talking to me. And I remember literally like when I had my own first plot that I was going to garden, like standing out there with my coffee. And I was like, okay, y'all, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need your help. And so each day I could almost hear them teaching me how to garden. Did you ever have that similar experience?
Absolutely. And I sit there and we see the same hummingbirds, and I have a hummingbird, which I believe it's my grandmother communicating to
I
me.
love that.
Um, so, the hummingbird would come and just be all in my face, just zoom, 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 and then, go and do the pollinating and stuff like that. So I believe that our ancestors do communicate to us in many different ways. And sometimes a lot of the time it's right in our face, right? It's as some of the pollinators who's helping us and helping us cultivate. Sometimes it's that inner thought that you're not able to really connect with when you're busy throughout the day, right? You're in autopilot doing all these things, but once you're able to just go to the garden and sit with your thoughts, that's when you can hear God and your ancestors calling for you and giving you pieces of information of what you need to do.
Yeah, I totally, completely believe in that. Like, hands and feet in the ground. And
Mhm.
um, but what I also love is that this recreation of like how I grew up is people used to not really believe my stories about growing up on a farm and all the different things. But that was one of the beautiful things is how family and community came together to like grow food, to share food, and food preservation. So it's a deep ancestor practice, for all of us. But what I really love is like reclaiming it for people of color.
Yes.
Um, for years, it's like post slavery, a lot of our people were just like, we're not doing this no more, and ran away from the whole concept of gardening or being on a field. Have you seen, especially with the youth or the people that you work with, like this peak of interest the more you educate?
Absolutely. Well, I think there's a lot of history behind that. So I'll get into a little history, right?
Yay!
And
Put your
this is
school
just
teacher
like
on.
get my school teacher on, right? So, I try to enlighten especially Black and African Americans on our rich culture of agriculture. So if you are Black or African American, if you trace your roots back, it's 100% of the time is going to go back to a place of agriculture, right? So when we were brought over, right, those of us, our ancestors who were brought over, we were stripped from our land, right? And a lot of that was agriculture. And then when we were brought over as slaves, we were brought over to cultivate, right? Because that was our power. Our power was cultivating, our connection with the land. So we got stripped from our land of cultivation to come over to America to cultivate, right? And then that is how our country was built off the cultivation of what we did with the land, right? So then after that time, we we didn't lose our ability to cultivate or our interest in cultivating because we owned about 15% of farmland when we were free, right? So then they had acts like the Merrill Act, the original one, not the reenacted one. The original Merrill Act. What happened was when that passed, it did not allow Black people to pass down their land. So we owned land, we were growing, we were farming, but when our elders passed away, that land then went to the government, right? And then we know that there was other acts like the Homestead Act, right, which gave people, white people, all this land, right? So we weren't able to pass land down to our children, which is how we lost a lot of that. So it wasn't because we lost interest; it was by
Yeah.
design of how we lost all of this farmland. And then from there, we kind of got stripped from those practices, right? So we're a lot of us are no longer connected to the land because of that. So I think that is how we are now within a 2% of farmers in America. We went from
Yeah.
15%, we went from 15 to 2%. So a lot of that was just policy and, and laws and policy that did not want us to maintain that because I mean, you know that land is power, right?
Yeah.
Being able to cultivate, you own land, you can create value, you can create food resources, you can create power, you can essentially create any and all resources with land. So that is what I believe happened and why we are in a space that we're in today.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, especially like being out in Louisiana and seeing the sugarcane fields
Hmm.
and seeing like the juxtaposition of, some of the old plantations, but seeing like some of the farmers who still actually own some of their land that goes back like 100 years, like their family was able to hold on to it. And there's so many environmental justice things that are happening outside of New Orleans. and still watching some 80-year-old elders who are still fighting, big corporations, big factories to hold on to this land for that purpose. They're like, my people are buried here. To own land for 100 years and be like a person of color is a very rare occurrence.
Absolutely. Imagine what the fight 100 years ago when just to maintain that land. So it's important to keep it and sustain it, pass it down, and keep it in your family's legacy.
Yeah. That's what she is. She's 80 and she's like, I never thought I'd be an environmental justice advocate. Like, she's gone to the UN, she's gone around the world to fight for her parish. And she's like, I didn't think I was going to do this when I was 80. And so what do you say, to those behind us to help encourage them to follow in your footsteps or be inspired by your footsteps, whichever way you want to say that, I think,
It's yeah. I mean, it's a little difficult because depending on where you are, like if you go to like the inner cities, a lot of us have lost that connection to nature, and we don't see the value in being able to cultivate, right? Because we live in this low context culture, and then when I say that is as a country, right? So this is what a lot of the conversations and teachings that I give my students are us being in this country, America. We are a low context culture, which means that the culture of our country is characterized by individuality, competition, right? Versus where we come from, which is why a lot of us is dealing with anxiety, depression, and all of these things, because this is not inherently how we're supposed to live, right? Our ancestors lived in a high context culture, and in which some places are still high context culture, right? So this is a culture that's characterized by emotionality, right? Where you work with nature and not against it, right? You're not tearing down nature to build all of these cities, right? Where we focus on group identity versus individual identity. So it would be, me not focusing on my personal accomplishments, but rather our accomplishments. Like, what have we done collectively, right? So it's if we lived in a collectivistic culture, right, which is a high context culture, and right now we just live in an individualistic culture, which is not a part of our autonomy. And a lot of us, we just navigate, we subscribe to it, we navigate through it without really knowing. Right, that's why they always say, right, knowing thyself, right? You have to go back and understand your history to know who you are. And once you do that, you will start to reimagine yourself and what the society we live in. And then you can rebuild that collectivistic culture where we focus more on group identity and who we are as a collective than our individual accomplishments. So if that is what I would explain to the youth. It's not even starting with agriculture, right? It's starting with understanding where you come from and understanding the type of society we're supposed to be living in. And then once you understand that, you can reimagine and envision the world you want to live in. And then, like we said earlier, if you can envision it, you can create it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think it's like giving people the space to be able to envision things instead of scrolling and and that's what I think.
Scrolling.
Yeah.
Social media has a place of.
Honey, we can have a whole podcast on
Oh,
that.
no, that's a whole different podcast right there.
And then like social media and herbalism too. I'm like, ooh, that's another. So we talked a lot about mental health. So what are you growing in the garden to help people, with anxiety and stress? What are some of your, plant loves, if you would rather, kind of say?
Okay. I like to start with common herbs, just herbs you can find all around you that you don't know is medicine, right? If you can start there, then you already you'll realize that you already have access to a lot of plant medicine, right? So,
Yeah.
um, common herbs like rosemary, which is the herb of remembrance, we know historically it's been helped with cognition to help with your memory, right? Just a few things it helps with, right? You go around, you find rosemary everywhere, right? People
Yeah.
plant it as border plants, and we have that type of medicine all around us. I love lemon balm,
Me too.
and my children, I've always used it to help them sleep, to help calm them. And it's so funny because we take a lot of our herbs, right, and we create herbal teas, and then we sell them at farmers markets and stuff out here. And catnip, right? So
Yeah.
when people see catnip, when they hear catnip, they're like, "Is that for cats?" And I'm like, "No, it's not for cat consumption, right? It's it's a part of the mint family, and it has a lot of properties that are calming, right? Just like lavender, just like lemon balm. But catnip is probably one of the best calming herbs that you could find. And how I like to explain it to people is that it gives you the same calming sensation as like CBD, right? How it just calms your body and you're sitting and now you're able to be in a state of relaxation. So a lot of people undermine herbal medicine, right? You have things like lemon balm. I grow a ton of sage,
Mm,
different varieties of sage, um, and lavender, echinacea, a lot of those plants. So I would say a lot of plants that's geared around the mental health. We rose
yeah.
bushes, um, even some flowering trees, such as um, what is it? Red buds, like the eastern red buds. A lot of people don't know that those flowers can be used medicinally, right? You have like the chase tree that
Yeah.
we grow a lot of those bushes. Well, I guess they're considered bushes or trees, whatever, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, but those help a lot with women's menstrual cycles as well, and relieving a lot of that pain and nausea. So it's just a lot of herbs that a lot of people just
Yeah.
don't know of, and these are herbs that you can get at Mountain Rose Herbs too. They have all of
Do
these
a
herbs, and they
little
have
plug in there.
yeah, all of these herbs and all of the capsules, right? You can also get the
Yeah.
capsules. They have them all in their store too. So
Yeah.
um, they're very. I mean, yeah.
I'm a lemon balm junkie also. I'm a little bit of a lemon balm snob though. Like I liked when I tincture lemon balm, I love to do it fresh
Mhm.
in gin and
Okay.
add a little bit of glycerin in there and it has this fruity pebbles like effect with it. So I that's one of my favorites and I'm such an advocate for that in children with mental health, especially since COVID, the times of COVID, it's like we didn't really, a lot of people didn't talk to kids about, this collective trauma. And when I do a lot of grief work with people, so I'm always about like whatever's going on in your house, your child is feeling that. And so that
Absolutely.
definitely is an ally. Lemon balm is. I'm like, I love to smell it and everything. I
Yeah,
love
everything.
yeah, it's one of those everything. It's interesting yours are around mental health and mine, are about, like, heart healing and emotional.
Which are all tied in together too, right?
Exactly.
So it's the three lemons. It's the lemon balm, lemon verbena, and then it's lemongrass. If you can combine those three into your garden, into your everyday life, you will heal a lot of things.
Oh,
The
yeah. And
three L's, the three lemons. We're gonna call it that.
yeah,
The three
the 3
lemons.
lemons, and then it makes one amazing tea also. Like,
Oh yes.
I love that one as a sun tea. One of your quotes that you had, that I love, and it's one of my belief systems too, is what you put in your internal body will change how you see your external world.
Yes.
I love that quote so much. So how do you, become like a living embodiment of that? What are some of the things that inspire you and also sharing that with community?
So whether it's intentional, whether it's not intentional, we are a living embodiment of that. And I like is I simply put it as the life you live is the life you manifested,
Mm,
whether it was intentional or unintentional, right? So you do have power over self. And a lot of the time we do give that power away, right? And we give others and we give systems power over us. So once you do realize whether you gave that power away, you gave that power away. Whether
mhm.
you gave other people autonomy over you, you gave people autonomy over you. And that all comes into the manifestation of what your life is, right? So now, once you're able to understand that, then you're able to understand that what you put in your internal body is how you will view your external world, right? So, and it's not just food, right? Because we obviously know if you what maybe it's obvious to some of us, right? But what you do
Yeah.
put in your body um, has a huge impact on your state of being, and it has a huge impact on your mental health, right? So it's not only the food we put in our body but the thoughts, right? The emotions we hold on to, right?
Yeah.
It can slowly kill us, or it can help develop us and help us grow and help us heal, right? So we are literally manifesting and changing our own development by not being conscious of what we put into our bodies, right? And then once we are operating on a low frequency, you now don't have control over the thoughts, your own thoughts, right? When we
Yeah.
combine that, we're going to bring social media into this. When you combine that to all the access we have on social media, we it's difficult for us to separate those thoughts, right? These are, and this is something I've learned through all of this, that these are not my thoughts, these are not my emotions, right? Especially when people are projecting emotions on you, right? When social media are projecting thoughts and emotions on you, it's hard to separate what's yours and what's
Mm.
not yours. So what we put in our body causes that, right? We're not in a very strong cognitive state anymore, because our body, our mind, and our body and our emotions are now vulnerable.
Yeah. That's what I love before where you talked about, sipping your tea on the land and like
Hmm.
reconnecting those mindful moments with our favorite teas can really help us recalibrate. Like what
Oh
is this
yeah.
emotion mine? Is this emotion yours? Is this emotion collective? Like
Hmm.
what's happening right now?
And
So it's
even
like,
filtering out a lot of those negative thoughts and a lot of
yeah,
those negative emotions. It helps you to do that.
yeah. Tea ceremonies, I think, whether personal or public, I just really together. There's something about the whole process, especially like growing it, harvesting it, and then being able to
Mhm.
drink it and have that vibration inside of yourself. So let's turn to like food. And what are some of your favorite food things that you like to share with community? Because I mean, I'm an advocate of meeting people where they are,
Mhm.
because you can't be like, stop all your things and then start this new regimen. It's so much. So when you're talking about like food in the body, what are some of the first steps that you share with community?
Um, well, I do. I love that quote. Meeting people where they are. So one, it's starting there,
Hmm.
right? And it's just introducing them to things that they can add to their diet, right? And the nutritional value. So I think one thing most people relate to is struggles and challenges, right? We all have those, right? So kind of giving them an idea, and a personalization, right? Being able to connect on a personal level. So I'm always sharing my personal experience with food and how it has transformed, my way of life, and things like that. And then once they're able to actually see and connect to it, like I
Yeah.
think if you plant a seed, right? If you plant a seed and you see it grow, you are more likely to try it. You're more likely to connect to it and to at least give it a try, right? So, just bringing people to the garden, even if they're starting as volunteers, and then when they're able to, in one way or the other, right, come back and see the cultivation of it, or also just watch
Yeah.
us on social media and be like, hey, I I help plant that, right? Right. And then, we do our food giveaways and they always come back and they always try it. So I think just bridging that gap, right, and creating that connection to the land, right? That and I think it goes a long way. We don't really emphasize how important connectivity is, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we can get people to try some foods and even share some of the, eating habits or foods that they're doing or they're making. And once that connection happens, it starts to spread like wildfire. That's
Yeah.
something that I've seen with the work that I do.
I love that. And I'm always like cooking with the ancestors. I like to take
Uh-huh.
deep ancestral meals and like put herbs in them in some way. Like I'm always like this culinary, like I make a Creole seasoning with Vitex in it, and
Mm.
powdered mushrooms. And so, always teaching people how to incorporate and sometimes take away, like having Meatless Monday cooking classes and things like that
Mhm.
too.
And Vitex tastes like black pepper. Like the
It does.
flavor of it is so delicious. But the interesting part about it is it that grows seamlessly in the desert. 'Cause
Wow.
that is the chase tree that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So, that's the scientific name for it, and you can grow that is drought tolerant, and it's something you can grow very easily out here in the desert. So, once people make that connection, right, like, this is what this is
Yeah.
what you can use it for, and also, it is something that primarily grows in the desert, right?
Yeah.
Now we're in now okay, now we caught your interest.
Ooh. Well, that's a perfect segue into you have a new book out. I'm so excited.
Absolutely.
Cultivating Abundance in Harsh Climates, a guide to desert gardening.
We have it right here.
I'm so excited. Mine I'm ordering is coming in the mail. So I'm excited about this. What inspired you to write this book?
Um, access,
Okay.
right? So one, before I became a child development teacher, right, and before I actually pursued my master's, I actually wanted to get my master's in creative writing because I
Really?
love to write, right? That writing is probably my number one passion above everything else is writing. And then there's just so much information, and what I found myself doing is not knowing the best way to get the information out to people. Right?
Mm,
Yeah, I'm doing workshops, I'm doing live videos, I'm all on social media making posts about this plant and this nutritional value and this medicinal medicine. And I'm just like, what is the best way I can kind of filter everything into a manuscript that makes it easy and practical for those who are wanting to know how to cultivate, right? And it was creating this book.
How long did it take you to write it?
Actually, a few months, not long, because I already had everything. Like, this
Yeah,
is all just what I already had, and I've done hundreds of presentations,
yeah.
workshops, and, I already have a lot of this written down. So it didn't take very long to, kinda get it all into a manuscript that makes sense, right? Because most of it is already written down. It was more so just changing the wording and the verbiage so that it's less of presentation and more of storytelling, right? So there's storytelling of what our story was and how we created everything, and there's storytelling, which is an excerpt that I would want to read here is going to
Yeah.
be what the world would look like without pollinators. And I think that will kind of help the audience grasp what the inspiration behind this book is, to really reimagine the world and understand the importance of cultivating land.
I love
So
that. Are you
yeah,
going to give us
that's really the
a little
yeah.
sneak peek
We can read it's not very long, it'll be like 5 minutes, but we can definitely read something from the book, and I think that will help readers or those who are interested in maybe buying the book to understand exactly what the inspiration or what we hope to accomplish with writing this book.
Well, if you don't mind sharing a few lines with us, that would be great.
Okay. Absolutely. All right. So this is going to come. So there's 4 parts. So part 1 is rooted in community, which talked about our story, what inspired us, and it just gives you the whole image of what our community garden is, which is everything we grow there seasonally, the trees, the fruit trees we have there, the flowering trees, just to paint the idea of what is possible out in these arid climates, right? And then next, we're going to develop an ecosystem, a balanced ecosystem, which talks about cultivating the soil, creating pollinator habitats, how to create all about creating biodiversity, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, we jump into growing practices, which is we're talking about xeriscaping, we're talking about permaculture, container gardening. We're also talking about like vertical gardens and salsa gardens, and all of all of these different types of gardens you can create within your space. And then
Yeah.
we get into our appendix, which is how to utilize your garden as a healing space, right? We talk a little bit about trauma, and then we have a plant schedule, which tells you what you can plant each month and what to get started. So I call it a planting cheat sheet.
I love that. Also, just a sideline, I love that you have a dirt nerd chapter.
Yeah, I have one whole chapter that is all about soil structure, composting, regenerative soil, and how to engage in that, and the importance of that as
Yeah.
well. So I am definitely a dirt nerd.
I love
That's-
it. I love it. I love it. Have you always been a dirt nerd?
I mean, even before I knew it, I was always a dirt nerd, just playing in dirt. I was always a dirty kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But now it's more structured, right? Where we're actually talking about the soil composition, and right, microorganisms and all of those things. So definitely, soil as a foundation to agriculture. It's important.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I wish I would have had more knowledge when I was younger, to pay attention to like my grandfather and my uncles, who were just like, they could, my family drops a seed and it just grew, and like the soil was like all the things. And so that's one of the chapters I'm most excited about diving in deep in your book, is the dirt nerd chapter. I love it when dirt nerds get together and start talking about dirt, is one of my favorites. I love it so much. Yes. Do you mind sharing a little bit of reading from your book with us?
Oh yeah, of course. So I am going to start with a section called "A World with No Pollinators." So this
Okay.
is starts on page 73, and it's not that long. It's from 73 to 75. So I'll just read a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So close your eyes and picture a garden in full bloom. Now slowly strip away the buzzing bees, the drifting butterflies, the darting hummingbirds, the bats gliding through twilight, and the beetles crawling among the flowers. At first, the garden still looks colorful, but without pollinators, that beauty is short lived. Flowers begin to wither without producing seeds. Fruits and vegetables stop forming. The scents and colors that once attracted life fade into silence. The heartbeat of the ecosystem slows. Without pollinators, our food supply would be drastically different. Over 75% of the world's flowering plants rely on pollinators to reproduce, and about one out of every three bits of food we eat comes from a pollinated plant. Without them, crops like almonds, tomatoes, blueberries, squash, and countless others would become scarce and expensive. A simple summer meal of fresh fruits, salads, and herbs would be transformed into something rare and unaffordable. The diversity of flavors, colors, and nutrients we take for granted would shrink overnight. The effects would go far beyond our dinner plates. Pollinators support plants that form the foundation of ecosystems. Without them, many wildflowers and native plants would vanish, setting off a chain reaction. Animals that rely on those plants for food or shelter, from tiny insects to large mammals, would struggle to survive. Landscapes would change as pollinator dependent plants disappeared, replaced by species that do not need animals for reproduction. This shift would ripple through food webs, threatening biodiversity worldwide. And here's the reality: this is not just an imagined future, it is already happening. Across the globe, pollinator habitats are disappearing at alarming rates. In the United States alone, beekeepers report colony losses of 30 to 40% each year. Monarch butterfly populations have dropped by more than 80% in the last 2 decades. Native bees, which pollinate many wild plants and crops, are declining due to habitat destruction, pesticide use, disease, and climate change. In the desert, development and land clearing are replacing wildflower fields and native shrubs with concrete and gravel, leaving pollinators with fewer places to feed and nest. Imagine a desert without pollinators. Gone would be the vibrant blooms of desert marigolds, palo verde trees, and cactus flowers. Springtime in the desert, when life bursts into color, despite the harsh climate, would become muted and still. Native bees, hummingbirds, and moths that currently thrive here would vanish, taking with them the beauty and resilience of the desert life. Economically, the loss would be staggering. Globally, pollinators contribute more than $235 billion to agriculture each year. Farmers depend on them for crop yields, and without them, many farms would fail. The cost of hand pollination, where humans try to replace what bees and other pollinators do for free, would be enormous. And even then, we could never match the precision and efficiency of nature's specialists. Some regions in the world, such as parts of China, have already resorted to hand pollination due to pollinator declines, a warning that could happen on a much larger scale.
Mm.
So I'll stop there.
I know, I was like trying to do a little meditation in the beginning, but it made me sad to like think of all the pollinators that are dying.
Yeah, so it really and I think that really encompasses the book and
Yeah.
why it's important. And it's not just desert climates, right? Like this
Yeah.
is a reality everywhere
Yeah.
where our pollinator habitats are dying off. And our food system really depends on pollinators. So, in the book, right, the main focus of the book is creating a balance, which is why that chapter is so big, creating a balanced ecosystem, because it is about attracting those pollinators and creating a habitat and shelter for them so that they can exist, right? And then they can help increase the yields of our plants, of our food, and then our ecosystem wouldn't fall and fail.
Yeah.
So once you understand the importance of that, it can actually help you reimagine what our world would look like if we were all to play a role in the survival of our pollinators.
Yeah. So what are a couple of plants that you love to like two or three? There's so many of them. I hate when people ask you what's your favorite plant? I'm like, all of them. But what are a couple of easy to grow ones that we could all put in our garden this spring to help with the pollinators?
Absolutely. So I like to, you have some plants that go dormant, right? And the more flowers you can keep throughout the year, the better for your pollinators. So one is, which is this one's difficult to find. And it's actually my favorite. It's Canary Island sage.
Hmm.
So this plant, depending on where it's cultivated, right, it can grow up to 8 feet tall.
Oh my
And
goodness.
currently, right now, ours is about 6 feet tall. And it's if it gives you beautiful flowers all year round. And it's one of those herbs that doesn't go dormant, right? So
Mhm.
it really does depend on where you are, right?
Yeah.
You have like the Palo Verdes. I love oh my gosh.
It always ends up being such a simple plant that
Yeah, yeah.
like,
It's a very simple plant. I love red buds.
oh
So
yeah.
you can grow red buds in essentially any climate, right?
Mhm.
You will find them out there in like Illinois, a lot, but because they are very adaptive to cold temperatures and hot temperatures, you can grow them anywhere. So the reason why I love those so much because they are the first ones to bloom in your garden, beginning of spring. I would say about early, even like mid March, they will probably start to bloom. They give you beautiful pink magenta flowers, and then the flowers will fall. So that is how you are able to attract pollinators early in your garden is through Eastern red buds, Oklahoma red buds.
Yeah.
Um, and then you'll start to attract those butterflies and those bees and ladybugs to your garden. And then once the flowers fall, then the leaves will start to develop. So I love the Eastern red buds. I love the Canary Island sage. And then, of course, like lavender, you can never go wrong with
Yeah.
uh, English lavender. You can never go wrong with French lavender. Those are always must-haves in your garden. And then you have trees that are like crepe myrtles. So
Mhm.
crepe myrtles, you can grow those essentially in any climate as well. So just starting with like simple trees and simple shrubs like that can really get your garden started.
Yeah, I love that. The springtime, I'm like a 3-year-old squealing kid, like, flowers everywhere, like, "Don't be in the car alone with me." I have to learn to reel it in because when I start seeing flowers, I just start squealing out loud. It's like an involuntary reaction to seeing everything start to bloom. So, yeah, I'm always it's so interesting. You're like, it didn't take long to put your book together. I'm always an advocate about that with writers. I'm like, everybody has a book inside of them, I feel like, whether you share it with the world or not. Um, and so I
It's
just
more
think,
the editing process. The editing process
yeah,
it's a whole different process. But in terms of just getting it all together
yeah,
and saying, okay, I'm ready to send this off for editing, that process was easier for me because
yeah,
I already have all the information. It's just more so what do I want? Because I always think, what do I want people to feel when they read this book, right?
that's me
And
too.
then yeah, so it's so important because that is where connection happens, right? Is
Mhm.
how do I want you to feel when you read this book? Right? What is the vibe? What is the energy of this book? Right? And right from the first chapter, you know the whole vibe of the book is inspiration. I want you to feel calm. I want you to feel relaxed. I want you to feel good. And that is the vibe you get throughout the whole entire book.
Yeah, that's what I loved about looking through. It's like it's almost like you're like if you were hanging out in your community garden and everybody was together. That's the feeling I got from looking through your pages. It's like and also hearing you read now, it's just like you're just sitting there having this experience instead of saying dirt, this amendment, that very textbook, which is
Yeah,
different.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, like a textbook. I did not want it to feel I
Yeah.
did not want it to feel like a textbook. As an instructor, I'm uh, getting away from textbooks. I've already gotten completely away from textbooks as an instructor. So I want everything to feel like a
Yeah.
conversation, to feel like we are just hanging out, like we're talking, like we're vibing. And I think people learn and retain information better that way than feeling like you're drilling information in their head.
Did you learn anything about yourself while writing this book?
I did actually. It's always those things that you don't think of, right?
Mm.
So writing the book, especially in just the entire process, right? So my entire family has been a part of this entire process, right? So this book has actually brought all of us together, right? And as we're selling these books, and I think my wife and children, especially children, have learned a lot about me, probably more than what I'm learning about myself throughout this process. Um, but just the patience, the that is not even about money, right? It's more so about the connections you make with people. And one of the things that I've been seeing, which is so amazing, is how people are just so hopeful now, right? Especially in my community, it's just people are so they have hope, right? And that's not something you can buy, right?
No.
That is just seeing it, like people coming up to me like, "Hey, I bought your book. I'm already making changes to my garden, or I'm actually going to do a garden this year. I have so much more hope now," right? It's been an amazing process, right? And just I feel like I've grown closer to myself in this process.
Yeah.
I've grown a lot closer to myself.
I love that. And especially like taking this approach, like we're so tactile with the plants, but like sitting, there's something that happens when you sit down and write and become a conduit to information that is then received from other people. I'm
Mhm.
always like, it's so awestrucking, like, to me, and it's so humbling to me also.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always say if you connect with the book, you're connected with me because I poured myself
Yeah.
into that book. My energy is going to be the same as we're talking right now. When you're reading that book, you're going to hear
Yeah.
my tone, you're going to hear my laughter, you're going to see my personality when you read that book. And a lot of people feel like they've grown closer to me, and when they see me, they feel like they know me because reading the book, you've already had this 136 page conversation with me,
Yeah.
right? And where you're
With
you're able
my
to feel my
nerdy
energy.
self.
Exactly, right? You're gonna see the nerdy side of me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude is a nerd.
I know. You're like, "I'm accidentally cool." I don't know, the plants do it. I'm like, "I'm really
Yeah, I don't
cool.
know.
I'm kind of a
Being a
nerd."
nerd, being a nerd is a new cool. That's what we're gonna say.
I've always thought that. I'm like I'm like, "That's just me." I'm like, anything other than that, like, being a living embodiment of your work, of building community and, like, past like, of course, all of us wants abundance on a multitude of levels. And we all nurture the earth and it happens in our way, but to when somebody's really inspired by your writing and your work and they can feel it, you're like, okay, that's it's done. I mean, you always have that one or two people that are going to leave some kind of negative review, and you're like, you're just like, it's like that's my child that you're talking about. But
Uh-huh.
I always say that my book is our book, and that's what I
Yeah,
feel like when with reading your book. Like, you did the labor and delivery work, but I still feel like it's our book.
because we're a collective.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
we operate in high context. So and trust me, I've read your work. I have your book and I read your work as well. And I love it. I love the connection you have with herbs. It's very genuine. It's you, right? Like this is very you're very tapped in and you're very connected to um beyond the physical world, right? You have a
Yeah.
deep connection to your ancestors, you have a deep connection to yourself, you have that emotionality, right? And as you can feel it and read, you can feel it as you're reading your book.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of work and the ancestors. I would constantly do ancestor prayers. I'm like, take
Mhm.
this book to the person that needs it. And it's always fascinating when you get that email or something from somebody around the world. Like I think of like a person like me with no community having this book to feel like they have community. And that's how I feel
Mhm.
like
Absolutely.
your book is going to do and inspire other people's gardens just as it already is and helping, especially helping us who want to be dirt nerds be more of a dirt nerd.
Absolutely.
So do you have any interesting events or things that are happening around you that you're really excited about? Are you going on a book tour? Like, what are we looking at?
Well, we've been on a book tour,
Yeah.
but kind of more so just locally. So we really want to maximize and have that impact on the local community first, and then spread out. I've had a book signing event at our local community garden, and then I'm scheduled to have a book signing event at my local community college, which is going to be pretty big. And then from the book, right? Because it's not going to stop there. I'm doing an in-person um, cultivating abundance in harsh climate spring gardening course. So yeah,
Yes.
so I'm extremely excited. I'm telling you, I teach all day, right? At my college, I teach 8 courses, which is a lot of courses, and then I'm expanding the teachings to the garden. So that course, I have it open for 30 participants, and with registration being open for a few weeks, we're already more than halfway full.
I love that.
So I'm extremely excited from that for that. And then in the future, I'm going to start doing virtual courses
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people who are just not able to attend in person, and I want to have more of a stronger reach. So we're going to start doing those virtual courses as well, so that we can get people around the world who wants to learn how to cultivate in their climate, right? To get started with that. So I'm excited for that. I feel like I'm just adding more and more and more to my plate.
Exactly. And something happens when you write a book. My friend was telling me about that. She was like, look for things to change. She's like, all of a sudden, she said, you get smarter when you write a book. And you're like, you've been the same smart, but all of a sudden, it's like people look at you differently. And so I see that as I go to events now. I was like, I'm still the herby, nerdy girl. Like, this has
Yeah,
nothing to
and that's what I've been like. I've been experiencing that as well. Like, people treat me like a local superstar, and I'm just like, I'm just this nerdy
do.
guy who study ants and study dirt, and I'm still out there dirty most of the day working in the garden. But yeah, something does happen because it's really you being able
Mm,
to hear your thoughts out loud, right? So a lot of us, we're thinking 24 hours a day, even in our dreams, right? And we don't really get to hear ourselves talk, right? So even when you write, you're taking all of those thoughts, and then you're able to really conceptualize your own intelligence, right? Some people will write a book and won't even read it, right? They wrote it, right? But
yeah.
then if you actually go and read your book, like my oldest son is reading the book. He's in chapter
Love
1.
that.
And as he's reading the book, it's so interesting. He's like, I didn't know that. So my youngest son was born the day we um, officially owned the land.
Wow.
So in the book, I tell the story of how the land, the garden, and my youngest son were born together, right? So that's a legacy,
Yeah.
and how they will always have that. So he was essentially born in a garden, right? He has spent from infancy all the way up until now. He has spent all that time in the garden. So him in a garden is interconnected. And my oldest son was like, I didn't know that. And I'm like, yes, there's so much. You see me every day, right? And
Yeah.
you spend time at the garden almost every day. But we rarely are able to actually step out of ourselves to read the story from someone else's eyes, right?
Yeah.
So then once you do that, you actually learn more about yourself. You connect more with yourself as you're reading it, like you're reading someone else's biography or something like
Yeah.
that. So you also find a different connection with yourself, right? And with my children reading the book, which my twins are on the cover of the book, but my oldest son, who's actually like reading it now, he's learning so much more about me, about our family, about our values and stuff, because you just live it, right? You don't actually
Yeah.
hear it out loud, and you don't get to read it. You don't get to
Yeah.
experience it as a reader. So I think that has been very captivating.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's interesting because you're like, this is my life. This is how I
Uh-huh.
live it. Now you want me to write about it, and I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
like what does it sound like? What does it sound like in a book?
I know. Well, we'll look for plenty more books from you. Um, you hold a lot of hats and do a lot of work. What is like your one central form of self care for you?
The garden.
The garden.
It's so interesting. Like you asked that. The garden is what
Yeah,
has like kept me alive and motivated and encouraged. Like just that is my connection, is
yeah,
nature, right? And my wife would tell you, anywhere we go, we went to Costa Rica last year. I took her to Costa Rica for her birthday, and the the experience we had there and just
yeah,
being amongst nature, it was like our hotel or our bed and breakfast kind of suite was, just imagine a forest and then you have a bed and breakfast just sitting in
mhm,
the middle of nature, where there's 100-foot mango trees and there's
yeah,
papaya trees and there's all these different fruit trees that's planted on sidewalks, and the general population just has access to just grabbing a fruit, right? Hunger is not a thing, right?
yeah,
Then when you come here, it's a totally different thing, right? So being able to just be amongst nature every single day for me is my peace.
yeah,
It's my peace. It's how I find peace. It's how I maintain peace. It's also how I am able to stay positive, right? Because we are in a very negative time in our
mhm.
society right now, where you can just turn on social media and use boom, death, boom, Epstein files, this, right?
Spiral, spiral,
Yeah,
spiral.
it's spiraling, and it's just circling you, right? Where it's easier to consume negativity than positivity right now, right?
Yeah,
So you need that space, right? You need that physical space to help create the mental space. So when I
mhm.
go to the garden, that is where I find peace amongst anything that's happening in the world.
Yeah, and it's that rooting down in the earth, like
Mhm.
grounding, it pulls everything down and just like I say a lot of times I do a lot of guided meditations. It's like pulling all of that down, handing it over to the ancestors to like then in turn hug you back through the land.
Absolutely. And there is, which I think, because we're like, I know we're way over time, right? But there is a very strong message. This is how I live life, and this is what I get from cultivating. And this is a strong message that I would want our viewers to
Okay.
hear, right? So through gardening and through cultivating, this is what I learned, is that what you plant is what you will sow, right? And this is literal facts, right? So if you cultivate and you reaffirm negativity, that is what will grow inside of you, right? And you can only give what you have, what you are, right? So if you consume negativity, you will give negativity. If you consume positivity, you will give positivity. When you plant a seed in a garden, you nurture it, right? So what you nurture will grow. So you plant a seed, you nurture it, it will grow. If you neglect it, it will die. Right. So the seed, whatever you nurture in your life will grow. So if you see that things are not going your way, if you see that there's um, more negativity going surrounding your life, people, you have to learn how to set boundaries and nurture those positive relationships, right?
Yeah.
And even in a garden, we once you nurture the things you want, weeds will always pop up. And no one who has a garden is going to tell you that weeds don't pop up. If you let the weeds grow, because your water will run off and it will water other things that
Yeah.
will be attracted to your garden, right? Those are the pests, right? We all have pests too. You can't get rid of pests, right? So if you do not pull those weeds out, they will overtake your garden. If you do
Mhm.
not set boundaries with the things you don't want in your life, they will overtake your life. And once your garden is full of weeds, it's difficult to get them out of your garden. And not only that, you won't be able to tell the weeds from the flowers, right? Your flowers and all the things you want will start to die off because the weeds will overtake them. So you have to be very intentional with what you nurture and the boundaries you set with
Yeah,
the things you don't want in your life, or else you're going to have a garden full of weeds. And
exactly.
we want the things that's in our garden to be intentional, because when you plant things intentionally, you actually create the life you want. You create the garden you want. So that is has been one of the biggest life lessons I've learned through having a garden and cultivating, having a community garden. Right now in my personal life, I am now very firm when it comes to the boundaries I set with the people I have in my life. I
Yeah.
do understand that you have to weed those things out to make room for the things that you do want in your life. Right. So that has been one of, I would say, the biggest lesson I've learned
Yeah.
through my time gardening and cultivating abundance.
Yeah, I think that's what I enjoy so much about each moment I get to sit down and have conversations with you. I'm always talking about the power of a seed.
Mhm.
Herbalism isn't just about an herb that does this and a plant that does that. I was like, the power of a seed to germinate within your own mind, your own body, your own spirit, your own community, and how we utilize the plants to weave it all together. And I think that that's
Absolutely.
so important, on top of the herbal knowledge too. But
Mhm.
remembering what the plants and what gardens and what that can teach us in our lives, other than what they do for us. It's what we do for them and
Absolutely.
what we can do for each other. Tyrone, thank you for your time. I look forward to actually receiving my hand copy. I want my hands. Cultivating Abundance in Harsh Climates, a guide to desert gardening. Thank you for challenging our minds, helping us redefine what deserts are in a multitude of ways. Thank you for being a dirt nerd and such a beautiful person in this world. I appreciate your time and all the work that you're doing. Thank you all for joining us on Herbal Radio, and we will see you next time.